Hey, sorry about that, man. This is your boy Ricondo. Come back at you with another video. And today we're going to talk about the linebackers for the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, we know we did the secondary on Monday, and today we're going to talk about the linebackers and the review on those and what it means for Atlanta Falcons year, how the linebackers fared this year in 2024, and what it means for linebackers going into 2025. So before we get into that, guys, if you've had not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the notification bell so you don't drop another video. Please hit the like button, so I know you guys are here to talk about. Then please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come and hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So definitely we're going to get into our DC search, right? We do have some updates on that. As of right now, the Atlanta Falcons have interviewed three defensive coordinators to be the next defense coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, we know about Lou Anaromo is one of the guys, the former DC for the Cincinnati Bengals. We also know about um, Wink Martindale, another guy that they actually interviewed as well. So Lou Anaromo, Wink Martindale, both of those guys interviewed. Um, I think it was yesterday or the day before for the Atlanta Falcons. Look like Wink Martindale also had an interview with Indianapolis Colts. So the Atlanta Falcons want to, try to make a push for that guy. Hopefully, they have him on their priority list like that. One thing about Wink Martindale, you go look at when they stint when he was with the Baltimore Ravens, he had some of the best defenses during that time there. Um, I mean, highest 1 and 2 in the league for a scoring defense. So I kind of like that. And then you look at the aggressiveness that he displayed there with that staff and with the players he had. That's the kind of defensive player. I mean, defensive coach that I'm talking about. I was looking for. You think about a guy like Wink Martindale. Interesting nugget that Matthew Judon was actually there when Wink Martindale was there. So that's something interesting to think about. Of course, Matthew Judon is one of our free agents that probably may not, depends on what he wants. His market is going to look like. The Falcons getting for a cheap deal, maybe bring him back. But Wink Martindale is a guy that definitely he was not somebody on my radar, but by him coming in, go look at his resume. I think it's pretty interesting. The Atlanta Falcons started to go that route. It's something different that probably Raheem Morris, his style of play, but you need to change it up. And a guy like Wink Martindale might be the guy they want to consider. Also, Lou, like I said, Arnold Romo, right? The guy from Cincinnati. Of course, we know, and didn't end well for him. Probably had one of the best defenses this season in the NFL. But if you go back and look to his stint, his time with the Cincinnati Bengals, was able to beat Patrick Mahomes. One of the teams able to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Right, Patrick Mahomes only got 3 losses. Of course, one of those come to the Cincinnati Bengals by him and his staff scheming up something how to stop the great Patrick Mahomes. Of course, they also went to Buffalo and beat Josh Allen in Buffalo as well. So both of those performances, if you look at that, being able to get to the Super Bowl, it's all about the personnel. We know, by losing Jesse Bates and a couple more players they lost on the defensive side of the ball, hurt their defense. So, and you look at a team like Cincinnati. Cincinnati is more, on their offense. It looked like kind of like the Atlanta Falcons looked a couple years ago. Got good quarterback, good receiving core, good pieces on the offense side of the ball, but like they neglected the defensive side, and that's what happened. So you can't blame Lou for some of the downfall of the defense. But that's why he was let go, because it was statistically one of the worst defenses in a while. So, but he's another guy that the Atlanta Falcons had talked to. Also today we heard a report about the Atlanta Falcons did a video interview with Jeff Ulbrich. He was one of the guys we talked about last week. Him being the guy that they might consider bringing in as a defense, somebody that's Raheem Morris real familiar with. You go look at his defenses with the New York Jets when he was a defensive coordinator there. They had some of the best defenses in the league. Um, during that time frame. So he does have a good resume. Somebody, but the question is, do they want to go back to somebody that already been in the building, or they want to change, right? But you can't deny what he was able to do with his defense. Go look at his defensive um, teams and their rankings and things like that. It was really very impressive during that time. So Jeff Ulbrich is the third guy that Atlanta Falcons have already interviewed. And last but not least, they reported that they was interviewing Steve Wilkes, another guy that we talked about that spent a couple of days with the Atlanta Falcons during the training camp. Um, interviewed with Atlanta Falcons for head coaching position as well, so they know him as well. They already know a little bit about Steve Wilkes. He's supposed to interview with the Atlanta Falcons next week. So that's another guy that Atlanta Falcons could be considering as well. So those are the four guys that we know about right now. We haven't heard about any more coaches. We talked about a whole nother list of you know, candidates out there that they could probably bring in. What's going on, Raymond? But for right now, Lou Amorano, Wink Martindale, and then Steve Wilkes are the guys that we know that Atlanta Falcons, and of course Jeff Ulbrich as well. So out of those four defensive coordinators, which guy would you consider bringing in? So out of those four, for me, just based off, like I said, resume, Wink Martindale probably would be the guy for me, right? He's currently defense coordinator for the Michigan Wolverines. But if you look what he did with the Baltimore Ravens, during the stint time there, having the second and third scoring defense in the league during some of that time frame he was there is impressive to me. So he would be the guy. Steve Wilkes is another guy that really well respected. So he would probably be my second guy. But I'm just wanting the Atlanta Falcons to think outside the box. I mean, Jeff Ulbrich resume is good if you look at his defensive teams, but I don't know. Maybe I just think I want to change there. Somebody that has not already been in the Atlanta Falcons organization to try to bring a different spin in what we're trying to do, right? Get offered up under that Dan Quinn tree a little bit, and that's what I'm thinking about Jeff Ulbrich. Don't have nothing against him. I think he might probably make a good defensive coordinator. Just want something different. That's why I'm looking at the other guys, Wink Martindale, Steve Wilkes, or either Lou Arnaromo. So either one of those guys. That's what I think. Yeah, and you're right, Raymond. You got to get it right. You have to get it right, because if you don't get it right, um, he probably gonna be out the door, man. Like, you like where the offense trending, right? But the best teams have good balance. Complementary football, being able to get off the field on third down, getting the ball back to your offense, right? Being able to not being the worst team again in touchdown. Atlanta Falcons was dead last in touchdowns given, for defense last year. It has to be better than that, right? That's one thing you can say about the Arthur Smith years. You had Dean Pease, you had Ryan Nielsen. The scoring defense was not as bad, right? Um, and they didn't have a whole lot to work with. I would argue that this is probably one of the most talented defense that we had in a while. Bringing in additions of a guy like Matthew Judon, um, Justin Simmons, right? I felt like when you think about it, this is probably one of the most talented defense we had on paper, and it's probably one of the worst defenses, performances that we had in a couple of years with the Atlanta Falcons. So you got to make a change. You got to think outside the box. So for me, Wink Martindale, I like that name. I like his aggressiveness. I like what he did with the Baltimore Ravens. And then, like I said, Steve Wilkes will probably be my second. Don't have nothing against Jeff Ulbrich, but it seemed like you're going back to the same defense with Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris if you bring in Jeff Ulbrich. Even though you look what Jeff Ulbrich did with the New York Jets, had really, really good solid seasons. So I'm not upset too much about, if Jeff Ulbrich was to become the defense coordinator. I just want him to change it up a little bit. What's going on, Carrie? Um, She said, "Can you please rank your favorite DC candidate? Jeff Ulbrich, Wink, Wilkes, and Lou." Like I just said, for me, it would probably be Wink first, and then Steve Wilkes, Lou Arnamomo, yeah, I really say his name, and then Jeff Ulbrich will be my fourth. So that would be my list right now. The four candidates that the Atlanta Falcons have talked to already, and then of course they plan to talk to Steve Wilkes here um, next week. So that will be my list. I mean, and the reason reason Wink is number one because of I just love defenses out in the AFC North. I like the way they play football. Those guys hit. They really hit. They hit. They know nonsense. They're aggressive. They get after the quarterback. Now Lou came from the AFC North, right? Um, like I said, this year is really a stain on his resume, 100%, because one of the worst defenses they had all year. Looking at what Lou was able to do this year, but like I said, if you go look at some of his signature wins, especially when it came games on the line that count the most, and in the playoffs against Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, he put on some really good defense performances with both of those teams, against both of those teams. So, checking the box for him in that category. Jeff Ulbrich, if you look at those Jet defenses, they've really been really solid for years, right? And the question was, they supposed to be Super Bowl contenders because of the defense, right? And you have to credit that to Jeff Ulbrich. So he was the defensive coordinator during that time when they was kept saying they just need a quarterback. It was a quarterback away. Obviously, it didn't happen. It didn't pan out that way because Aaron Rodgers didn't bring the fire or the ceiling that they thought they was going to be able to bring when he came in, right? It was more the same. The offense could never get on track, and the defense maybe took a little step back this year, but it still was solid. It still was solid defense. So you have to give your credit where credit is due with Jeff Ulbrich. I just think it's more the same, and maybe he has a different philosophy than what Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris brought to the table. And if that's the case, maybe it will be different. But for me, it would be Wink, Steve Wilkes. I love what Steve Wilkes was able to do with the Carolina Panthers a couple of years ago when he was the interim head coach there. And I also like what he was able to do with the 49ers, getting those guys to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So that would be my Wink, Steve, Lou, and then Jeff. That's my list. Sarah Condo's coming at us with another video. That's right, man. There you go. Yep, another video. All right, guys, let's get to what we're talking about today in just a minute. Is our linebackers, right? So first of all, guys, let me know what y'all think about defense coordinators. The four, please provide y'all lists who y'all think who they should go with out of those four guys. Those are the only four guys that we're going to talk to this year. Who would be your number one guy, and who would you would think about bringing in out of those four guys? So please let me know that. But let's get into our linebackers. So just like last on Monday, and I talked about the secondary, right? And we talked about the linebackers. So we're gonna talk about our free agents. Who are the free agents for the Atlanta Falcons? And you have to look at that first when you think about linebackers, because when the Atlanta Falcons decide to actually start the offseason, they have to look in-house first. You have to look at your own free agents first, because do you want to bring in those guys back? Right? Now, you have to look at first when you looking at this offseason, we also have to look at the salary cap. Right now, the Atlanta Falcons is over the cap by $7 million. So they have to make the decisions. Just going to put that out there. They're going to have to make some decisions this year. It's easy to get up under the cap. It won't be no big deal. They have guys on the roster that they can restructure. They can extend guys, however they want to make it happen. But they are going to have to make some tough decisions as well. Two guys in particular, and we'll definitely talk more about that when we get into when I start talking about the defensive line. And Grady Jarrett and David Amayada, both of those guys on the last year of their contract. So, yes, I'm talking about Grady, but he has a big cap number this coming up season. And Atlanta Falcons probably need to make a decision with him. Same thing with David Amayada. I think got like $8 million cap. They would to release him. They could recoup by $8 million there. So we'll talk about defensive line when that time's come. But, of course, the Atlanta Falcons got to look at the salary cap But when looking at the free agency right now, our three free agent linebackers that we have is Matthew Judon, of course. He was coming off his last contract when we made that trade. Lorenzo Carter, guy who's been here a while, who just keep coming back, but he's going to be a free agent this year. And then Nate Landman is our third linebacker it's a free agent, right? So you have to look at those three guys, and do the Atlanta Falcons want to bring any of those guys back? That would be the first thing that Atlanta Falcons have to consider from a linebacker standpoint. Nate, his season last year was really, really good. This year was more injury. Like the linebacker core, I think when we started the season, we thought that was one of the positions we definitely didn't have to worry about. With our three-headed monster that we had with Nate Landman, Troy Anderson, and Caden Ellis, and then I thought it became overburdened this year because um, Nate Landman sustained injuries. Also, Troy Anderson did as well. So, only guy we had there that was consistent was Caden Ellis, and we're definitely going to talk about him in a minute. But those are our three free agents: Matthew Judon, Lorenzo Carter, Nate Landman. Do the Atlanta Falcons bring all three of those guys back, or do they decide to move on from all of them, or one or two? We just don't know. We have to find that out. And of course, they might let these guys test the market and see where the interest at there. Now, guys that we still have currently on the roster is Rashaan Evans. I know you guys remember him from a couple seasons ago when Dean Pease was here. They brought him back. He was back and forth on the practice squad this year. JD Bertrand, our rookie from this year, I thought he played well down the stretch. He was injured as well though with concussions. I think he was in concussion protocol for like 3 weeks. So he had limited playing time, but when he was out there, he contributed, fairly well from being a rookie. So you like what you see from JD Bertrand. D'Angelo Malone, right? D'Angelo Malone finally was able to get opportunity to to get on the field and rush the passer. And he had a great game, especially against Oakland, right? I think he had 2 sacks there, but he was able to get out there, and he was a big part of that resurgence of our pass rush at the back end of the season, right? Troy Anderson, man, Troy Anderson has been injured his last 2 seasons, so we don't know what we're going to get out of Troy Anderson right now. He was one of the guys that had so much potential. Ceiling was really, really high because of his athletic ability, his ability to run from sideline to sideline, his intelligence, being able to being a quarterback in college and things like that, being able to translate that. We knew he was a raw talent, a guy that ran a 4.4 in the 40, so he has all the attributes to be a good linebacker. We just haven't seen him on the field enough. So the question is, Troy Anderson, he's going into his last year of his contract. So we're going to see about Troy Anderson if he can stay healthy and have a really good campaign this year. And then last but not least, Caden Ellis, right? Caden Ellis is probably one of the best players we had on defense this year, besides AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates the third. Caden Ellis, was the only linebacker in NFL this year that had over 120 tackles and 5 sacks on the season. So just to let you know that the impressive season he had, and also snubbed for being in the Pro Bowl or All Pro. But Caden Ellis really right now is one of our staple guys. He's going to last year his contract, so it'll be interesting if the Falcons decide to extend him and bring him back, because I think moving forward, between him, AJ, and Jesse, those guys are going to be the cornerstone of the Atlanta Falcon defense moving forward. So I put the outside linebackers and the inside linebackers together instead of separating them, right? Because all these guys played a big role in the pass rush as well, dropping back in coverage, being able to stop the run. So they all played a role in it. The question I want to put out for the audience is Caden Ellis. Do we move Caden Ellis to the to outside linebackers with Armor Ebiketie, right? Do we move him outside? You decide to not bring back a Lorenzo Carter or even a Matthew Judon, and you make Caden Ellis a a um a linebacker that on the pass rush more, right? Being a more of a pass rusher, or with a guy like Armor Ebiketie, and then you go out and find you another linebacker, or you bring back a Nate Landman. Troy Anderson is able to stay healthy. You put Troy Anderson and Nate Landman in the middle, right? You put a green dot on one of those guys, and then you put Caden Ellis and Armor Ebiketie on the outside. So that's something to consider. That's something to think about. It's another guy I didn't talk about because he was on the IR, and that's Braylon Trice. Of course, he's coming back as well, so that's another guy um, that we definitely need to consider as well. I don't know if Braden Trice is going to be more on the defensive line or on the outside, but I definitely want him to be a pass rusher. So, but for me, when I'm looking at the linebackers as a whole, um, they might have to bring somebody in because how much are you going to trust Troy Anderson to be healthy, right? That's a big key. Are you going to bring Nate Lemon back, and at what dollar amount? Just talked about the cap, right? Is he's going to be one of those coveted linebackers that you might not be able to bring back because of our cap situation right now? With Kirk Cousins being over there. Um, so the Atlanta Falcons got some decisions to make, but that's why the defensive coordinator. We just talked about the defensive coordinator and how important it is for the defensive coordinator to play a role into how this defense is going to be formed, and you know the personnel decisions that they got to make, right? Because depending on, if you're going to go back to a 4-3 defense, which could be a consideration here, and going back, instead of being at 3-4 that they was so-called a base this year, they have to make that decision. So the linebacker position is going to be key to that, right? Um, you want to have linebackers that can run sideline to sideline and be able to drop back in coverage, right? One of the biggest things that we saw this year, and it was the last game of the season where they had Matthew Judon drop back in coverage, right? And he got paired up with Sanders, right? We saw what happened with that. Straight up burnt, wide open touchdown for Miles Sanders. So, you know, is that the right way to deploy a Matthew Judon, put him in coverage like that? Now you playing 3-4, those outside linebackers do have to drop back in coverage from time to time, right? So those some of the things you got to think about. You got to think about when you're going to get your DC, especially where you have so many free agents on the defensive side of the ball this year, right? We got 23 free agents, right? And majority of those free agents is on the defensive side of the ball. So Atlanta Falcons got a lot of decisions to make. Do you run it back with some of those players that you had, or do you decide to go try to find other guys? Of course, they got the 4 draft picks, so they're gonna be able to bring in young talent there. They got some guys that coming back, like I said, DeMarco Hellams. I talked about him on on Monday. You got Braylon Trice coming back is another guy that didn't get another burn as well. You got Dorless that did Dorless. I don't even know if Dorless got any snaps this year. So, those are things that when they start thinking about, the defensive side of the ball and the new defensive coordinator, how it all, plays in effect together. So it's going to be key. And thinking about the defensive coordinator and how the Atlanta Falcons decide to shape up this linebacker core, it's going to be key. It's going to be key. But if we look at the way they utilize Kate Ellis, I think that needs to be, part of the game plan moving forward, right? He was one of our most reliable pass rushers. I think he had the most pressures on the team, at inside linebacker, what I'm saying? So that's why I mentioned putting him on the outside a little bit more, being more of a pass rusher. And towards the end of the season, they started to actually feature him more at pass rush to the point where If you looked at the Commanders game and you listened to the commentator, what he was saying was they was actually leaning towards Caden Ellis because he was wrecking games. That's how effective he was in pass rush, especially running coming up the A and B gap, and they trying to put blocking with a running back. It was a no go, right? So they had to start chipping and they had to start helping, you know. And when you do that, right, you start helping with one pass rusher, it opens up, the floodgates for the other guys. And that's what we seen. That's why it was so effective towards the end because they started to utilize Caden Ellis more in pass rushing, and it affected, the numbers, guys. We had, I think, after week 11, I think the Atlanta Falcons had 10 sacks. They ended up with 31. Now, they still was 31 in sacks at the end of the season, but, to go from 10 to 31 was impressive during that time span. And then I think the Atlanta Falcons had the most sacks during that time frame, are tied with a team um, down the stretch. So the Atlanta Falcons definitely turned it around. You saw the upgrades and the things they was able to do. However, the last two games, um, is the reason why Jimmy Lake is not here. Let's just be honest, right? They took a step back and everything else. The pass rush didn't even exist in the last game. Um, Bryce Young just had all day to throw the ball. And matter of fact, I don't even think they pressured as much as they did in the previous weeks leading up to the last game of the season. So I don't know the game plan. I don't know what they was thinking, but they did not pressure Bryce Young at all in that last game. So, and we saw what happened, right? Atlanta Falcons gave up the most touchdowns on the season. So we got Raymond saying reliable is being available, kind of like Martindale idea. We're missing that physicality. Yeah. And that's the only reason why, like I said, for me, when I think about physical football, I think about the Pittsburgh against Baltimore. I just think about the way the AFC North they hit, man. Out there in the cold, they all got outdoor stadiums, right? In the cold, and you can hear the thud, and you can hear it. You can hear the hitting. You can see the physicality, and that's what I want for Atlanta Falcons. I just want them to be a physical team. So that's why, right? I agree. Martindale is the guy, but the Carolina Panthers, if you go look at their defense, up under Steve Wilkes, those guys physical. They play hard. They really, really solid in the run game. So it'll be interesting to see what Steve Wilkes will be able to bring to the table as well. So either one of those guys for me, if we got to pick from those four, either one of those guys will work for me. You said, yeah, he got a few snaps. You talking about Malone? And you said the best ability is yeah, Troy Anderson, man. So let's talk about Troy Anderson, right? So Atlanta Falcons picked him in the second round, right? They had 2 second-round picks. They picked him, and I think they picked D'Angelo Malone. I think they picked both of those guys in that round, right? Um, and nobody had heard about Troy Anderson, right? But if you go look at the way he tested, right, and in the combine and the ceiling they had for the guy, his measurables, being that big, being able to run that fast. And we've seen flashes. We have seen flashes, right? You go back to last season, not last season, but 2023 season, we played Chicago and how he just shut down Justin Fields was trying to run the ball. That's the year Justin Fields was running up and down the field. Troy Anderson was really, really, instrumental in the way we played against him in that game. You go back and see what Troy Anderson was able to do this year when we played Alvin Kamara in the first game of the season, and his things he was able to do. And that's the game, he ran back for a touchdown against the Aints. So Troy Anderson has the skill set, but it's just he only played like I think the count is 7 games in the last 2 seasons because of injury, not because he can't play, because he's just not being available, and so that's really really huge for us to um to have him on the field. This is a big year for him. This is a contract year for him. So it's gonna be interesting to see what he's able to do. You know, see can he actually get a full year in. I mean, the guy that played, in college, he played pretty much everything for the team, right? He was their guy. He played quarterback, he played running back, he played linebacker. Um, so the ability there, I think like I said, I think the intelligence is there, but we just got to see it on the field. And he's just run out of time. He's just running out of time, right? Because he can't stay healthy. So we'll see if he's have a full healthy season this year, and see the vision that they're going to utilize with him. A guy I also think is able to rush the passer as well because of his speed and his power. But we just haven't seen enough because he has not been able to stay on the field. So um, Troy Anderson is going to be key moving forward. Of course, Kate Ellis is going to be key, and then we're going to see JD Bertrand. And I haven't said this all season long, but but we get into the off season, so we're going to get to see that year one to year two jump from players, and that's what in particular I'm talking about JD Bertrand. Um, I mean, if you look at it, look at the jump that Bijan had. Now Bijan was outstanding from day one, but you can just see how Bijan was really able to had a game slow down for him a little bit more when he was reading his holes, when he was starting to hit them. Because honestly, man, Bijan looked almost unstoppable this year. Um, and that's that year one to year two jump that's what I'm referring to. So you look at a guy like JD Bertrand, right? We need to see that jump from him. We need to see that year one to year two jump, right? Um, Kane Ellis is he's finally getting recognition that he needed, right? You look at what he didn't have a lot of playing time when he was in New Orleans, right? He finally getting an opportunity, and it seems like he's trying to outdo his brother, in Denver. So both of those guys are starting to come in their own, right? But I think Kane Ellis is it's going to play a major role in our linebacker core this year. It'd be interesting how they're going to use him. If they don't use him to his strengths and put in more pressures, um, I think they're doing the defense, they're doing the team, and they're doing him just if they don't utilize that more. The tape does not lie, the numbers does not lie about what Kane Ellis was able to do. So D'Angelo Malone, finally, I'm so happy because the jury was out on D'Angelo Malone. We was not sure, was he a bust? He just didn't get the opportunities, and he finally got opportunity this year. And I thought he played really well, right? Besides for that, the the legal contact down the field in the Washington game, I, the refs shouldn't have called that, but he got to know he can't push the tight end 10 yards down the field as well. So um, that's I guess that's the only knock I can give on D'Angelo Malone, because the Atlanta Falcons was off the field, and honestly, I think that might have changed the game. Right? You don't want to relive things, but if you go back to that illegal contact down the field by D'Angelo Malone, it kind of changed the whole game. That was a big third down, it was third and long. Atlanta Falcons had put another stop in, and D'Angelo Malone, um, you know, gets the penalty and prolongs the drive, and the rest is history, right? That's what happened. That's what happened. So, but D'Angelo Malone, he's in his final year along with Troy Anderson. So both of those guys playing on contract years this year, along with a guy like Kyle Pitts as well. Who picked the Atlanta Falcons picked the fifth year option. So a lot of guys playing for their contracts with the team and with other teams, right? Because they need to put something on tape, if they end up being free agents the following year. So it's going to be interesting to see what D'Angelo Malone, Troy Anderson be able to bring. But K Nell is going to be the key, and JD Bertrand. needs to have that year 1 to year 2 jump, right? And last but not least, do they bring any of these guys back? The three that I talked about on the free agents: Judon, Lamon, and Carter, right? Armor Ebiketie. Armor Ebiketie. Can he be the guy? Now, Armor Ebiketie, showed lots of promise. He showed a lot of growth, towards the end of the season, man. He actually led the team in sacks, believe it or not. It was only 6, but he led the team in sacks. So Armor Ebiketie is trending up in the direction, and we need to see something from Armor Ebiketie this year as well, right? So, matter of fact, I think Armor Ebiketie might be on his last year his contract as well. So there's a lot of these guys that's really um need to put something on tape this year that needs to shine going into. And this all goes back to Terry Fontenot as well. You're thinking about the guys he drafted. You look at D'Angelo Malone, Troy Anderson, Armor Ebiketie, right? All these guys need to have big years, right? Because this lets you know, like when you pick a draft class, and you don't know until later on, in 2 or 3 years later, if it was a good draft class or not. People like, you got an A in the draft class. How they ain't played one snap in the NFL, so you can't sit here and say that it was a good draft until 2 or 3 years later. And unless they hit the ground running that first season, right? Sometimes it take guys longer than others, right? All right, look at a guy that the Atlanta Falcons definitely could have picked in the first round this year, Jared Verse. Yeah, look at what he was able to do, right? Now, if Atlanta Falcons pick Jared Verse, they want to have Michael Penix. So, can't have both ways. So, so that's the way we look at that. We got like Jared Verse. Um, but, look what he was able to do. So sometimes it happens for guys to come out and hit the ground running. Um, like I said, Terry Fontenot, first round picks, he got a B plus, right? I can't say A because Kyle Pitts right now is the only stain considering his first round picks right now. But the other three right now is really solid. And maybe the 8th overall pick is where the Atlanta Falcons need to, if they're going to pick in the top 10, they probably need to pick at number 8, because you look at a Drake London, you look at a B.J. Robinson, you look at a Michael Penix Jr., and you be like, okay, right? So Kyle Pitts is the only guy that needs to get back in good grace with the the organization, with the fan base, and so on and so forth. Has the talent, but just have not lived up to the hype. So, besides his first season. But guys, there you have it today. The linebackers. The linebackers for the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons got a lot of decisions to make. Big name guy, Matthew Judon. One of the guys that contributed a lot for us in the last 2 years, and Nate Lamon, right? Or are they fine with JD Bertrand taking those place? Do they trust Troy Anderson to be healthy? Are they going to get D'Angelo Malone more, opportunity to be really good? So we'll just have to see, right? Armor Ebiketie, can he get to the double digit sack this year? Maybe he will. Atlanta Falcons bring in more help to help him, get to the next level. But the key is the DC, right? We need to find out who our defensive coordinator is going to be, so we can have an idea of how we think they're going to use these guys moving forward. That's what we need to see. So, guys, there you have it. Definitely want to hear your opinions. Start off with the DC search. Out of those 4 guys that Atlanta Falcons have talked to, and of course they plan to talk to Steve Wilks next week. That'll be 4: Wink Martindale, Jeff Ulbrich, Lou Anarumo, and Steve Wilks. Out of those 4, who would you like? And then from the linebacker standpoint, um, do you see the Atlanta Falcons retaining any other three free agents that's on the list right now? Do you trust Troy Anderson being healthy? What do you see out of JD Bertrand? And do you see a guy like Caden Ellis being more of a pass rusher, like being, that having that green dot in his head, getting all the defense lined up, which is really important as well. So, guys, there you have it. Please let me know. Give me your thoughts, and I will definitely talk to you next time. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.